Alright, today we're going to go over how to do a front brake bleed on this 2022 Harley Davidson Sportster S. Alright, so real quick, here's what we will be using today. We have a vacuum bleeder that we are going to be attaching to a air compressor, a number 2 Phillips head screwdriver, an 8mm wrench, and some DOT brake fluid, DOT 4 to be specific. Another thing is you do want to use it from a sealed container or a recently opened container. By recently I mean no more than about a week old. As long as you are going based off the specifications, up on the cap here will tell you, as long as you're using just DOT 4, that's fine. There are multiple ways to do this process. There is a manual way. There is a what I call automatic way with a vacuum bleeder and a air compressor. And then there's another manual form which is a bit less labor intensive and only requires one person as well. And that is a handheld vacuum pump. We are going to use, though, like I said, the vacuum with an air compressor. If you don't have an air compressor, or if you don't have a vacuum bleeder, one of these runs about 150, 200 bucks. One of those in comparison runs about $40. It's just different options you have. Like I said, you can also do it manually, but it's about a 2-person job. One person is on the top, one person's on the bottom. I'm gonna remove the top cap. So the reason why we have the bike like this is because it's even leveled. As you can see, this reservoir is at an even level. If we were to straighten the bike out, the reservoir is not leveled out. It just makes it a lot easier to access, specifically with our situation and on the lift. It's a lot easier to access both. So we got our cap off. Let's face down and check this out. The cap here states, use only DOT fluid from a sealed container. Look at that. It's on the cap. I didn't even see that. I'm Harley certified. One thing I suggest before I go any further, doesn't hurt, with a microfiber, put it on the bottom of those things. The brake fluid is very corrosive to paint. You don't want to get any of that on your paint. Very carefully remove this seal here. There we go. And now what we're gonna do, or better said, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna suck out all the fluid from here. Once I suck all the fluid out, I'm just gonna clean it up with a towel, and I'm gonna add some clean fluid. Now, if this was being done a manual way, yeah, you can add a bunch of towels. That's what I would do. You know, very carefully, you can add a bunch of towels and just let those absorb that liquid. But that's kind of just, you'd have to get it, you know, best thing I can suggest is just get ingenious with it and don't let it drip all over the place. Don't make a mess. It's very easy to make a mess with brake fluid. But with the vacuum pump, it would, the handheld vacuum pump, it would be the exact same concept. Just be sticking one end in here and out it goes. Now, I'm gonna make my life easy. I'm going to remove this little nipple for now and give me a straight direct axis, straight line. Cleaning out the debris, any stuff that's in here, you should be able to notice that. You know, this is a relatively low mileage bike, so there's not going to be much in here. Bikes with high mileage, you tend to see gunk at the bottom, and you'll literally see gunk in between the corners build up. But this bike's got low miles, so everything in here is relatively clean and looks good for the most part. This is a pretty easy one for that reason. It's recommended that if you don't use the bike much, at least every 2 years, you know, I'd go based off your user manual Most bikes come with user manuals. If not, you can easily look up the user manual for free online via Google. But it's really based off how much you use it. Brake fluid absorbs moisture and it oxidizes, so once it turns black, it looks like Coca-Cola, the darker it gets, that's kind of a clear signal and indicator of when that it's time to flush that fluid out and swap it out for some new clean fluid. All right, so that's pretty good. Next, we're gonna take our bottle. Like I said, this bottle I opened up just like 2-3 days ago, so it's relatively new. We're gonna fill ourselves up to the top. See that fluid? It's pretty clear. And now we're gonna go to the bottom here. Whole goal here is to always have suction or a vacuum, in other words, on this end. If I was doing it manually, somebody pumping at the top, at the lever, whenever someone was pumping and I would ask them to hold it, and I would crank open this nipple, releasing any air, any fluid that is in here. The lever on top would come in to the bar, and without releasing, I would then tighten up this nipple and go ahead and afterwards pump up that lever again and repeat that process multiple times. That would be a manual way. This way, as long as we have air and a vacuum, we just crank it open and we make sure that we don't run out of fluid at the top. And we do about 2 of those reservoirs and we'll be good. Crank it open. You can see the fluid coming down. Oh, all right, we're good. You can see the fluid coming out. And we're gonna just monitor the top. Halfway through. We're gonna be good with just one of these. And before it goes empty, I'm gonna shut this off, close it up, shut off the bleeder, and I can top it off up here. We've got our lines right here. I'm gonna go right between the max and the minimum, right there. Excellent. Double check it. Nice and hand tight. Doesn't need too much torque. Plug it up. And we're done down here. We come up to the top and very slowly and carefully you pump your lever. So with this bike specifically, we had to pump it a couple times. You know, when I first came to it, there was no pressure. Just gave it a couple pumps and it built up the pressure. And like I said, do it carefully because you don't want this to spit up the fluid. Just pump it, hand pump it. You see, builds up the pressure. One of the things that I like to do, especially once this is all done, once you put your cap back on, seal everything up, is it doesn't hurt to leave a zip tie on this overnight. You basically compress it all the way in, put a zip tie around here, let it hold. It pushes any remaining air bubbles up through the system and up the reservoir. So it's a good way to kind of ensure that you've got as much as you could of those air bubbles out. Thing I love doing. I do it on all my bikes, especially like when I'm going on a track day or something. If I bled the brakes the night before, I'll leave that thing overnight, or I'll leave it on. I'll leave that brake held down with a zip tie on the way to the track, and it's just nice to see that when I get there, that pressure's still there. There's no leaks anywhere in the system because it's a sealed system. There shouldn't be leaks anywhere. If it could go wrong, you should leave some air in the system. And this lever might still break, but it feels very soft, spongy. That's gonna tell you right away that you left air, that there's air in that system.
And what do you do if there's air?
If there's air, what you can do is take the cap off and do this, just manually pump it. Manually pump, pump, pump till you feel resistance. If after pumping for about, for minutes on end, and you feel no resistance, I would recommend to do the bleeding process all over again, but do it manually. You might need to have somebody help you. What you're gonna literally do is just keep this full, make sure it does not go empty. You will be up here holding this lever, you will pump, you will hold the lever down. As you're holding down, somebody down there can crank open the nipple or the bleeder nipple on the bleeder screw on the caliper. And without letting go, you then tighten the bleeder screw on the caliper and resume to pumping again until there's resistance. You hold it, open the bleeder screw, close it, pump again, and you repeat that process over numerous times. When I say numerous, it's about 20-40 times that you do it. Sometimes if you're starting on a system that has like no fluid, you could be there for a long time. But that is the most reassured way that you will get the system properly bled if you can't get any resistance or any kind of pressure on this lever. It's nice to have one-sided calipers, but at the same time, if this was two-sided system, it wouldn't be any different other than just we would start at the caliper furthest away from the master cylinder, which would be the left side caliper in this instance. Then we would do the right, and then if there was a bleeder screw up here, we would do the master cylinder last. And then we could repeat those over and over multiple times, you know. It all depends on how much brake fluid you have or how many times you want to do it until you feel reassured that you did that correct. But as long as there's pressure on this lever, and like I said, doing that zip tie thing overnight or for a couple of hours reassures you that there's no leaks in the system. That's why I like to leave that held down with a zip tie as well, because it applies pressure to the whole system and you can see anywhere visually up here or down by the calipers if it's leaking. This to me feels like a solid brake. I mean, these are not like the RCSs, you know, and even then they're not like the old school R6 Brembo master cylinders that you can get, you know, you get a bite just initially. These have a little bit of travel.
Like a squeeze, like they progressively get stronger.
Yeah, this one has a little bit of travel before it actually gets there. Like the RCS is the upgraded ones. You can get
Is it to prevent the lock?
I think that's more. That's more to prevent from someone from just grabbing a whole handful of front brake. You know, because my Brembo master cylinder on my 2.0 is the exact same way. I cannot get it rock solid, or I don't know if that's because of the ABS motor in between. Because this bike has ABS. The one thing I did forget to mention is don't worry about that ABS system. You don't have to have any kind of additional hardware. Just literally do the bleed as I explained. Now last but not least, we got our cap, wipe it off. You know, like I said, this system was relatively clean. It was still like new, this bike. Very low mileage. Clean up our cap, up our seal. This is probably the most important one that we get cleaned, because this is the one that goes in between the cap and the fluid.
So where did you leave the fluid?
We left it, this one, we left it right between the minimum and the max line. This bike has already, like I said, some mileage on it. So we don't want to put it at the max, because whenever they change brake pads, since these brake pads already have some wear, whenever that means that fluid level has gone down. If we were to put it at the max, and when they come and try to spread those pistons in to put new brake pads in, they're gonna have to open this up and extract some fluid in order to get those pistons to retract to put in those new brake pads. What we're basically doing here is simulating a little bit of the wear. We're not going to the top because there's already some wear at the bottom of the brake pads. Once this line hits your low level, that should indicate that your brake pads are low as well and that it's time to change them. One tip, when tightening these down, you don't have to put all your strength into it. It's just like turns. Here we go. you know, hand tight. Hand, not your whole freaking arm. You don't gotta put all your arm into it. There we go. Wipe it off. Get a nice looking container. Voila. Double check down here that you've got no leaks, that there's no fluid leaking anywhere. You can check your bleeder screws, see that there is no fluid. You are good.
How much money would they save? Or how much does this average, or what do you charge?
This with me runs you $100, and that includes the fluid. But I also do the front and back.
So if someone were to take it to a dealer, a Harley dealership?
I mean, I can't tell you how much it costs, but I know it runs about $200 and up.
And if they were to do it themselves?
I think with the vacuum itself and brake fluid and a wrench, a Phillips head screwdriver, probably looking at about, let's just say, estimated between $80 to $100.
So the same.
And that's just on the high end, you know.
But that's the same. But in the future ones,
yeah, you can do it again yourself. But you know, I don't know many riders that are doing brake fluid changes. Only avid riders, like guys that ride a lot. You know, and by that I don't mean the guys that just get out every weekend. I mean kind of the dudes that do the track days, that get it on the weekends, that sometimes commute. But not many people are doing brake fluid flushes.
And they should?
They neglect it. Yeah, they should be. All right.
Done?
Let's get this one off.